Hey, it's Drybear. Yesterday, they did a full new trailer for Borderlands 4, as well as a gameplay showcase. And I think it's been a pretty interesting cycle for this game in general. I mean, Borderlands is a franchise that is long-standing and very much beloved, and a lot of people look at it as kind of the standard for looting games that are a little bit less live service-y. So if you look at, like Destiny or Division, TFD, Warframe, that sort of thing, Borderlands kind of has that arc. And what was interesting is, last year when we got the Borderlands 4 trailer, it got pretty much bashed. I mean, there's some people that were really excited about it, but in general, there was a lot of negative feedback about the way it looks. People were making fun of the game. And honestly, going into the showcase from yesterday, I didn't think very much of Borderlands 4. However, this gameplay showcase and the way they were showing it off here, I personally think looks awesome. And a lot of things that made the original trailer look not as good as previous Borderlands now make a lot more sense now that we've seen more of what they're doing with the game going forward. So today, I'd like to recap the gameplay showcase, talk about Borderlands 4, and get you in the know. Now, keep in mind that they will be doing a showcase in June, so about 2.5 months from now, we'll be getting a brand new update for Borderlands 4. And of course, quarter 4, we're gonna see the game coming out as well. So you have a lot more to come on that front. But first I wanna talk about the change in art style, because it was a big thing for Borderlands. Borderlands has always been this kind of mixture of cell shaded with more of like the comic book style, sharp black accents that really make things look kind of inky or painterly in some cases. And that's always been the Borderlands style. But with Borderlands 4, they've taken a bit of a shift from that. It feels a little more modern high fidelity with the Borderlands art style on top of it. And you can kind of tell it in what's looking on here. Like if you took off the comic ink accents, some of these shots would actually look like a modern stylized, but a modern high fidelity game. So it seems like they're kind of easing up on the token Borderlands style a little bit, which does look different, and to some Borderlands players may actually look funky, but I'm liking it. Like at first it kind of weirded me out, but as I've been watching more of the gameplay and seeing the game overall, it looks like a 2025 game that has the Borderlands stylized art style for it. And those two things together, I think, are kind of a nice touch for the game in general. Now, the first thing to talk about is they showed off some of the end game systems. They talk about some of the failures of Borderlands 3 and how they're improving Borderlands 4 for the game. And it does seem like they're including more games as a service. It does seem like a lot of the like Destiny style mechanics that people were like, or a little more of the live service multiplayer / co-op is coming back with Borderlands 4, including, by the way, split screen and couch co-op support, which is hopefully going to make this very, very fun for a lot of people. People still sit down with their spouse or their family member or their friend on a couch and still couch co-op, even though things have gotten a lot more separated than they used to back in the Halo days. But in general, having that coming back is nice. But one of the things they talked about for the gameplay for Borderlands 4 is that there are new movement options. A lot of the like run and gun style experience you'd have in pretty much all Borderlands, except for some of the spin-offs, is present here. However, they're adding in a bunch of new stuff. So like being able to have vehicles that are customizable and have mounted weapons, so you can use vehicle combat for that. And also having grapples, dashes, and other aerial moves that allow you to move around, which I think supports some of these big environments you have from the missions in Borderlands 4. You're gonna be able to move around freely. And it does seem like with the new systems for partying up and queuing with people, I think that's going to mean that you can kind of hot swap in players and also just take advantage of the space that's in front of you. And it's not like vehicles are new to Borderlands, but it does seem like this feels a little bit more focused on integrating the vehicles to the combat rather than being like a one-off. It's hard to speak about the whole Borderlands series because they've done so many different experiments over the years between, Tina's Wonderland and all the different Borderlands games. As as a bias representation, I didn't like Borderlands 3 as much as 1 was actually my favorite Borderlands, surprisingly enough. 2 was, I think, a better game overall, but I enjoyed 1 more. And then 3 was like hit or miss for some people, and it was definitely a miss for me. However, what I've seen so far on Borderlands 4 is encouraging and very exciting, and it does seem like they've got the right gist on where they want to take the series and the IP in the future. Speaking more on the multiplayer side of things, they have a brand new lobby system, which is, like I mentioned, a little bit more live service-y in that it's meant to be a core part part of the experience, whereas kind of like a, hey, this is an option if you want to co-op or not. So they have a brand new lobby system. They mentioned that they will have full crossplay on launch, which is big for a game like this, having staggered launches or exclusive launches on specific consoles or no crossplay for a long time. I think that if you are a studio the size of Gearbox or any studio of similar size and resources, crossplay and preferably cross progression, if you can manage it, are something that should be high on the list, as it does, especially for multiplayer games and co-op games, make a big difference in people being able to play with their friends. And some games people don't play if they have no one to play with. And you know, there might be some people that are hesitant about live service kind of styles like group play, group encounters, you know, more focus on the online portion. Not to say that you can't play it in the normal Borderlands way if you want, but one of the things that they showed off was a kind of like boss system. Now, bosses are nothing new to this genre and certainly nothing new to Borderlands, but if they kind of play off of this as being like a co-op experience, the boss they're showing off here for Borderlands 4 looks really cool. Really over-the-top animations, some cool fight cinematics, things that play off of the class system, the enhancement system, and also the new movement options you have for the character that will hopefully, with a good difficulty scaler, make for some really fun co-op opportunities. They also teased a boss replay feature. One of the things that happened in Borderlands, and happens with looter games like this in general, is the fact that like you may only be looking for a specific drop that you want to target farm, but if it's a kind of campaign-based, mission-based kind of game, you end up having to redo the entire mission or the entire quest in order to get towards the boss. They're adding a boss replay feature in Borderlands 4, which means you'll be able to go straight to the boss to do it again if you want to. Next, let's talk about loot and gearing, as there have been some reworks here. And honestly, one of the biggest downsides, at least for me, was Borderlands 3, the last title that they released, like the mainline title. I didn't feel like it was in the best form of loot in general. What they're doing to make the gearing process a little more interesting, this is one of many things, is they are doing 8 weapon manufacturers. You'll see them listed on screen. They all have different styles, but they also have different bonuses and effects and things together. So you can have multiple manufacturers. Usually they'll have different like market bias on what it is the weapon does and how it functions. But you can also get bonuses on your gear that affect specific manufacturers. Now, generally in a system like this could go one of two ways. A lot of times if you do systems like these, they can sometimes be cheap excuses to just minorly tweak one mechanic and then duplicate it 8 times or 12 times to make it feel like you have a lot of gameplay in the game, like gun designs and things like that. From what I saw in the gameplay, it didn't seem like that was the case, but we'd obviously have to play it to see. Let me know what you think about the idea of having all these manufacturers with different styles and presentations. It definitely gives the art team a reason to express themselves differently depending on the kind of weapon that you have, and it gives you the option for gearing as well, because there could be affixes or stats on things that affect specific manufacturers that you may want to specialize in, and could be interesting for builds depending if it's done properly or not at the end of the day. There's also a ton of feedback over the feeling of loot. It feels like we're having a PoE2 conversation right now, but just especially in Borderlands 3, the legendary weapons kind of dropped all the time, which, you know, kind of felt like the legendary weapons weren't legendary at all. Like they just didn't feel that special. They still had good effect, but they're just all over the place and didn't feel unique enough, and also just had a bunch of weird things about the amount of loot, usefulness of loot, and how things work to your build and if they're meaningful or not. So they have what they say is a brand new system. So they completely overhauled looting, rarity, how loot scales based on the difficulty you're doing, as well as the frequency of the higher rarity options and how powerful those options are, including legendaries. So hopefully that's enough. But next, let's talk about the new weapon system that they have included, which is what you see on screen here, which they're calling Ordinance. This isn't really a new thing. A lot of shooters, especially like over-the-shoulder or third-person shooters, will have mounted weapons, which means that you can pick something up off the ground. This is very normal. They're calling it Ordinance, and rather than having something that takes up a weapon slot or requires ammo, they're going to allow you to have an Ordinance as part of your build, and it will just be cooldown based, kind of like an ability. So you can bring out this mounted weapon, a huge twin-barreled howitzer or a minigun or something like that, and then you can take that and use that on cooldown and then go back to your normal weapons on top, which hopefully gives you a non-skill-based, non-character-based option for changing the flow of your gameplay experience to use ordnance versus weapons versus character skills. There will also be under barrels and alt fire modes for each weapon. So not only can weapon types have variety within the type itself, they can have variety based on what manufacturer it belongs to, and they can have variety based on the under barrels and attachments you put on the weapons to make them different, as well as the alt fire modes, which can be added or removed depending on what you're looking for. They're hoping that they have a very healthy ecosystem of different gameplay experiences to try. And honestly, if you look at the whole of Borderlands, that's probably what Borderlands has done better than a lot of these live service games, is there's just so much variety in what you can use, and it looks like they're continuing that in Borderlands 4. Next, let's talk about Enhancements, which is the modifying system for your gear. You can see it here, so you have these enhancement slots. You'll be able to put these on your weapon, and this replaces artifacts from previous games. It provides bonuses to specific manufacturers, specific playstyles, and is a little bit wider, at least from what I've seen, than artifacts, for example, on the weapon customization that you have in Borderlands 4. Again, it does feel a little bit like, hey, here's a whole bunch of affixes, and the ones that mean something to you are lined up. And again, it's one thing to say that rarity is fixed, loot drops are fixed, everything feels good, every affix matters. But again, until you actually get to mid to late game and start putting together full builds, it's hard to know if we can take them on their word at that. And let me know what you think about that in general. Like I said, Borderlands tends to do, you know, loot variety, gameplay experience variety better than most looter shooters on the market, whether they're meant to be online focused or co-op and solo, single player focused, but hopefully things are looking real good for Borderlands 4. Now you can combine Ordinance with weapons, the modifiers, the manufacturers, all those to make your build, but of course you are still selecting a character. And so this is the character skills that you have here. You'll be able to choose an action skill, which is your primary skill for the build, and then from there you'll be able to go down, and each of the action skills have their own branching tree that you can unlock additional slots for. Inside of the action skills, there are also augments and capstones. The stats are the square ones, but then you see like the more pentagram looking like little slots, the one are more triangular or diamond shape. Those are the augments, and then you can also get capstones as well towards the bottom. They allow you to completely change how an ability works, and it's super cool. There's socket enhancements for that as well. And one of the things I like about this as well is they actually seem to have a good mix, at least from what they've shown, and we'll see more in June, but a good mix of the traits modifying the skills. So you see here, the Vault Hunter trait for Phase Covenant means that when you summon your spectral cat, you can actually make the cat match the element type of your weapon. So what you're seeing here is the character switching between different weapons that have different elemental set, like whatever their elemental damage type is set to on the weapon, your ability will match that. So when you switch weapons, they'll match it. If you want to apply a specific status or do a specific damage type from that, it kind of gives you a visual representation of that with the skill that you're spawning, which is a really cool touch. Well, that's a summary of the gameplay reveal and the buzz around Borderlands 4 yesterday. Honestly, I'm more excited for Borderlands 4 than I was before yesterday in general, just because I feel like it looks good. It looks good. I think they've done a really good job of kind of bringing it into the modern era while sticking to their roots. Obviously, with games like this, you have to feel it. Like, you can't just say, yep, that's a good loot system, or yep, that's a good build system, or I like that. You have to be able to try it and experiment with it and play around with it. But at least from what I've seen here, there's enough reason for people to do so, especially if you're a looter shooter fan or a Borderlands fan. But of course, let me know what you think about Borderlands 4 and the showcase that we watched today down below in the comments, and what your expectations are for the launch later this year. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.